But actually, did you know that there were people that actually lived in the house before he owned it? The house was built in 1939.
For nearly half a century, one part of Elvis Presley's legendary home has been locked, sealed, and strictly off limits, even to some of those closest to him. Now, after 48 years, that door has finally been opened. What waited inside wasn't a dusty room of forgotten souvenirs, but something far more personal and far more unsettling. Behind the walls of Graceland, untouched for decades, lay traces of the king's life that challenge everything fans thought they knew. This isn't just about memorabilia. It's about a side of Elvis you've never seen, and once you hear what was found, you won't forget it. The day the music died. August 16, 1977, began like many others in Graceland, but by the afternoon, it would become one of the most infamous days in music history. Elvis Presley had been preparing for another round of performances, his schedule packed despite months of declining health. Staff members recalled seeing him in good spirits the night before, playing racquetball and chatting with friends. Yet by mid-morning, a troubling stillness fell over the mansion. Ginger Alden, Elvis's fiancée at the time, discovered him collapsed on the bathroom floor in his private quarters.
There was so much speculation and, outright lies started forming, and I had moved on with my life after he passed away.
Paramedics rushed to the scene, and within minutes, he was en route to Baptist Memorial Hospital in Memphis. Crowds gathered outside as whispers spread that something was terribly wrong. Former Elvis session musician Bobby Ogden later recalled the surreal moment the news came through. The airport wasn't busy, and we were about the only people there. We got the news through the air traffic controllers that Elvis had died. By the early afternoon, the unthinkable was confirmed. Elvis Presley was dead at just 42 years old. Ogden remembered the blunt message relayed to him and his fellow musicians. Elvis is dead. Everything is canceled. Go home. Act of God. The official hospital statement cited cardiac arrhythmia. His heart had simply stopped. This explanation left many feeling hollow, as it offered no clear cause for such a sudden loss. Doctors familiar with Elvis's medical history quietly questioned how a man of his fame and means could suffer such a fate without warning. For devoted fans, the idea that the king's heart just gave out seemed too abrupt, too simple, for a life so extraordinary. In the hours following the announcement, rumors began to swirl. Some claimed Elvis had been found far earlier in the morning, but that news was delayed to manage public reaction. Others whispered about the state of the bathroom where he was discovered, suggesting signs of distress that hinted at a longer struggle. Close friends reportedly described months of chronic fatigue, labored breathing, and swollen joints, symptoms that, if true, painted a picture of a man in steady decline. There were also murmurs of a final phone call Elvis had made the night before, allegedly speaking in a tone of urgency and reflection. The first major shock came when an autopsy revealed traces of multiple prescription substances in his system. While the immediate cause of death was listed as a heart issue, the presence of sedatives, painkillers, and other medications stirred questions about their role in the tragedy.
Unfortunately, Presley's autopsy is allegedly full of disturbing details that suggest the beloved star was pumped full of prescription at the time of his tragic death.
For some, this became a story of a man lost to the pressures of fame, leaning heavily on medication to keep performing. Others viewed it through a different lens, that perhaps Elvis's health had been failing for reasons unrelated to addiction, and that the substances were simply an attempt to manage severe ailments. Still, the combination of heart failure and a chemical-laden bloodstream was impossible for the public to ignore. By nightfall, television networks around the world were broadcasting grainy black and white footage of Graceland's gates swarmed by fans in disbelief. Candlelight vigils formed spontaneously on street corners and in living rooms. Radio stations switched to all Elvis playlists, letting his voice carry the grief of millions. In just a few short hours, the world had shifted. A cultural giant was gone, leaving behind not just a towering musical legacy, but also an enduring mystery about what truly happened in those final moments at Graceland. The physician who supplied the king. In the months after Elvis Presley's death, attention quickly turned to one man whose name appeared on a staggering number of prescription bottles found in Graceland, Dr. George C. Nichopoulos, known to the world as Dr. Nick. To some, he was a trusted physician who had stood by Elvis for over a decade, traveling with him on tour and attending to his needs at all hours. To others, he was the gatekeeper of a pharmaceutical flood that may have hastened the king's demise. Between 1975 and 1977, records showed Dr. Nick wrote prescriptions totaling more than 8,000 doses of painkillers, sedatives, and stimulants, all in Elvis's name. Dr. Nick never denied the extraordinary volume of prescriptions. Reflecting years later, Dr. Nick Nichopoulos admitted, "I cared too much." Instead, he framed his actions as a calculated measure to keep Elvis away from dangerous street substances. According to his account, the king's dependence on medication was already firmly in place long before they met, and his role was to control and monitor the supply in a way that minimized harm. "I tried in vain to reduce Presley's dependency, even going so far as to manufacture 1,000 placebos for Presley, but to no avail." He claimed that by writing prescriptions himself, he could ensure the quality and dosage, preventing Elvis from resorting to unknown sources.
I found out that we got into less trouble with him and medications if we kept them in our hands instead of giving them to him to take.
Supporters described him as loyal to the end, a man who made personal sacrifices to manage a patient too famous to live an ordinary life. But rumors circulated that his loyalty may have blurred the lines between medical ethics and friendship. Former associates alleged that Elvis could call for a prescription at any time, and that Dr. Nick rarely refused. Some even whispered that prescriptions were occasionally written for members of Elvis's entourage, creating a culture where powerful pills were as accessible as cups of coffee. Whether these stories were exaggerated or not, they added to the public perception that the physician was more enabler than a healer. The question lingered: was Dr. Nick protecting Elvis, or was he simply making it easier for him to maintain a dangerous routine?
Dr. Nick is convinced that if he could have shared that story sooner, had he been allowed by the court or Elvis family, he could have saved his career.
In 1981, Dr. Nick faced a high-profile trial on charges of overprescribing substances to Elvis and other patients. The courtroom was packed with media, fans, and medical professionals. Against the odds, a jury acquitted him, accepting the argument that his actions had been intended to help, not harm. Yet the scrutiny didn't end there. Over the next 2 decades, his prescribing practices for other celebrities, including Jerry Lee Lewis, came under fire. In 1995, the Tennessee Board of Medical Examiners revoked his license permanently, citing a pattern of dangerous prescribing that could not be ignored. Even so, Dr. Nick's role in Elvis's life remains a subject of debate. Some view him as a man caught in an impossible situation, tasked with caring for one of the most scrutinized figures in history, while balancing friendship, fame, and medicine. Others believe his choices, whether made out of loyalty or convenience, played a significant part in the king's decline. Whatever the truth, the image of Dr. Nick as Elvis's ever-present doctor is now inseparable from the story of the king's final years, another piece in a puzzle that has never fully come together. A funeral fit for royalty. The morning after Elvis Presley's death, Memphis awoke to an atmosphere unlike anything it had experienced before. Streets were choked with traffic as thousands made their way toward Graceland, desperate for a final connection to the king. Fans from across the country, and even overseas, arrived in waves, some sleeping in cars, others camping out on sidewalks. The Presley family opened the mansion's doors for a public viewing, allowing mourners to file past the open casket in the foyer. Elvis's longtime manager, Colonel Tom Parker, when asked about the future, reportedly replied, "Why, I'll just go right on managing him." Elvis lay in a white suit and blue shirt, his hair perfectly styled, his hands gently folded. For many, it was a surreal moment, seeing the man who had seemed larger than life resting in silence. On August 18, 1977, the funeral procession began under a sweltering Tennessee sun. 17 white Cadillacs, polished to a mirror sheen, formed the core of the cortege, accompanied by limousines carrying family and friends. The sight was a symbolic farewell, luxury vehicles rolling slowly through streets lined with weeping fans. Among the mourners were familiar faces from music, film, and politics. James Brown, Sammy Davis Jr., and Caroline Kennedy, standing alongside Priscilla Presley, Lisa Marie, and Vernon Presley. The procession made its way to Forest Hill Cemetery, where Elvis was laid to rest beside his mother, Gladys, fulfilling a bond that had defined much of his life. But peace proved fleeting. Just 2 days later, a strange and disturbing rumor began to spread. Men had attempted to steal Elvis's body. According to police reports, a small group had plotted to remove his coffin from the cemetery as part of a ransom scheme. The plan unraveled quickly, and the perpetrators were arrested before they could make good on their intentions. Officially, they were charged only with trespassing, but the incident sent a jolt of fear through the Presley family. The idea that even in death, Elvis might be the target of exploitation left them shaken. In response, Vernon Presley made a decisive move. Elvis's remains, along with Gladys's, were quietly relocated from Forest Hill to the meditation garden at Graceland, a private sanctuary the singer had designed years earlier. Security was tightened across the estate, with locked gates, restricted access, and a renewed emphasis on protecting the Presley legacy. Visitors could still pay their respects, but the physical space around Elvis became a fortress. It was during this heightened period of security that certain areas of Graceland were sealed off entirely. While the move was presented as a measure to safeguard privacy, rumors suggested that the family was also protecting personal spaces Elvis had kept to himself. The second floor of the mansion became off-limits to all but a select few, and above it, the attic door was locked. No official explanation was given, leaving fans and historians to wonder whether the grave robbery attempt had triggered not only the physical relocation of the king's remains, but also a symbolic retreat, closing off parts of his life forever. Graceland, the home. When Elvis Presley purchased Graceland in 1957, he was just 22 years old and already a national sensation. The property, a stately mansion on the outskirts of Memphis, cost him $102,500, a sum that, at the time, made headlines for its extravagance. Yet Elvis didn't change the name that had been given to the estate by its previous owners. Graceland fit perfectly, a name that resonated with a sense of peace, permanence, and Southern charm. Over the years, he transformed it from a quiet home into a personal kingdom, outfitting it with everything from stables and riding pastures to a pool room decorated in bold fabric patterns that seemed to defy the era's design rules. The estate was a reflection of its owner's eclectic personality. Friends and visitors often told stories of Scatter, Elvis's mischievous pet chimpanzee, who had a knack for playing pranks and causing chaos during formal gatherings. There were rooms designed for music and leisure, areas for friends to stay over, and outdoor spaces where Elvis could escape the spotlight for moments of solitude. In 1964, he created the Meditation Garden, a peaceful retreat filled with fountains and flowers where he would sit for hours contemplating his life and career. No one could have guessed that it would one day become his final resting place. After Elvis's death in 1977, Graceland shifted from a vibrant private residence to a guarded shrine. The second floor, where his bedroom and the bathroom where he was found were located, was sealed almost immediately. Only close family members and a handful of trusted staff were ever permitted beyond the stairway. Rumors emerged that the upstairs was preserved exactly as it had been on the day of his death, with personal items, furniture, and even clothing left untouched. Graceland's director of archives, Angie Marchese, later confirmed this, saying, "We consider the upstairs sacred. It has never changed since 1977. Everything is exactly how Elvis left it." Some claim that walking into those rooms was like stepping into a time capsule. a frozen moment that the Presley family had no intention of sharing with the public. When Graceland opened to visitors in 1982, the tour route deliberately excluded the second floor. Tour guides were instructed to redirect questions, and even high-profile guests, presidents, foreign dignitaries, and music royalty, were denied entry. The restriction wasn't just about privacy. It became part of the mystique. Fans accepted that some things would remain hidden, and the locked upper level became a symbol of the Presley family's right to guard their own memories.
Were you very close to your father?
Yes.
It was a daddy-daughter kind of thing?
Yeah, very much.
What was he like as a father?
Very, adoring, very sweet.
Elvis's daughter, Lisa Marie Presley, made that boundary clear in interviews. The upstairs will remain exactly as my father left it. It will never be open to the public. But even more mysterious than the off-limits second floor was the space directly above it, the attic. While photographs of nearly every room in Graceland eventually surfaced in books, documentaries, and fan collections, there were none of the attic. It was rarely mentioned at all, as if the family preferred to pretend it didn't exist. Over time, the attic took on a mythical quality in fan lore, with some speculating it contained lost recordings, private letters, or deeply personal artifacts that could alter the public's perception of the king. For decades, that door remained shut, waiting for the moment when its secrets would finally see the light. The legal battle to save Graceland. In the spring of 2024, Elvis Presley's beloved Graceland was suddenly thrust into the center of a legal storm that caught fans, the media, and even Memphis city officials off guard. A little-known entity called Nosen Investments and Private Lending, LLC, announced that it intended to auction off the estate, claiming that Riley Keough, Elvis's granddaughter and the sole heir to the property, had defaulted on a loan.
Now, a Missouri-based company says Presley used the estate as collateral in a $4 million loan that was never paid back. But Keough says the company used forged signatures and that her mother never borrowed any money from them.
According to their filing, a financial agreement had been made with Riley in which Graceland was used as collateral. The revelation stunned the public. For decades, Graceland had been more than just a home. It was a cultural landmark, a place millions considered sacred ground. The idea that it could be transferred into private hands felt unthinkable. Riley Keough, as trustee of the Promenade Trust that owns Graceland, immediately challenged the move in court. Her legal team argued that the entire claim was based on fraudulent documentation, pointing to signatures and agreements they alleged were forged. The case quickly escalated into a high-stakes battle over not just real estate, but a piece of American history. Fans flooded social media with messages of support, and local news outlets began round-the-clock coverage of what they framed as a fight to protect the king's legacy from exploitation. Rumors swirled about the identity and intentions of Nosen Investments. Some speculated that it was a front for a wealthy private collector with ambitions to strip the property of its treasures for auction. Others suggested it was a calculated attempt to force the Presley estate into a settlement, opening the attic and other restricted areas to public sale. The possibility that someone outside the Presley family could gain control of the attic, sealed for nearly half a century, fueled intense speculation about what might be hidden there. The legal showdown reached its climax just one day before the scheduled auction. In a Memphis courtroom, the presiding judge issued an emergency ruling blocking the sale. In his statement, he described Graceland as a unique and irreplaceable cultural asset, whose loss would cause irreparable harm to the public interest. Curiously, neither Nosen Investments nor Riley's legal representatives were present in the courtroom that day, leaving observers puzzled at the absence of the very parties involved. Whatever the reason, the ruling stood, and Graceland remained firmly under Presley family control. While the decision brought relief to fans, it also left lingering questions. If the court hadn't intervened, what might have happened to the most private corners of Graceland? Would a new owner have pried open the attic, scattering its contents across auction blocks and private collections? Or would its secrets have been quietly destroyed to erase whatever history they contained? For many, the 2024 legal battle underscored just how close the world came to losing not only a cherished landmark, but also the last untouched chapter of Elvis Presley's story. Hidden artifacts and personal treasures. Graceland, the iconic Memphis mansion that was Elvis Presley's home from 1957 until his death in 1977, remains a treasure trove of the King of Rock and Roll's personal history. While much of Graceland is open to the public as a carefully preserved museum, the Presley estate has maintained strict control over many private rooms and storage areas, safeguarding countless artifacts that provide an intimate glimpse into Elvis's life beyond the stage. Over the years, a variety of personal items have emerged from Graceland's archives, some on public display, others kept under tight security by the estate. These artifacts offer fans and historians a tangible connection to Elvis's complex personality and creative genius. As a Graceland estate curator explains, every item in Graceland's archives tells a story about Elvis, not just the star, but the man behind the music. His handwritten lyrics and personal notes reveal a spontaneity and creativity that fans rarely see. Among the most prized possessions are handwritten lyric sheets and notebooks, some dating back to his early career. These documents reveal Elvis's songwriting process and his sometimes collaborative work with other musicians and lyricists. His handwritten notes occasionally appear on hotel stationery or scrap paper, showcasing a raw and spontaneous creativity that contrasts with his polished performances. Though many of these materials have been exhibited in rotating museum displays or sold at auction, a significant collection remains carefully archived by Graceland's curators. Photographs from Elvis's private collection also provide rare glimpses of his offstage life. Candid images capture moments with close friends, family, and especially with his daughter, Lisa Marie Presley. These photographs reveal a softer, more vulnerable side of the superstar, humanizing the man behind the myth. Letters and fan mail form another important part of the archive. The Presley estate has preserved thousands of letters sent to Elvis over the decades, many unopened and stored in chronological order. These letters reflect the deep affection and admiration Elvis inspired worldwide and offer insight into the era's social context as fans shared their personal stories and support. Graceland's collection also includes personal memorabilia, such as jewelry, clothing, and stage costumes. Elvis was known for his distinctive style, and some of his iconic jumpsuits and accessories have been preserved in museum-quality conditions. These pieces not only reflect his flamboyant public persona, but also hint at his attention to detail and showmanship. One particularly fascinating area of Graceland's archive is its collection of audio recordings. These include studio outtakes, rehearsals, and sometimes unreleased sessions captured on reel-to-reel tapes. While most of Elvis's officially released music is well documented, these archival tapes offer potential insights into his creative process and experimentation in the studio. Though rumors occasionally surface about secret rooms or undisclosed artifacts within Graceland, the estate remains discreet about unpublished materials, choosing to protect Elvis's legacy responsibly. Any new revelations typically come through authorized exhibitions or carefully managed releases, ensuring the integrity of the historical record. Overall, the hidden artifacts at Graceland form a rich and nuanced portrait of Elvis Presley, not just as the king of rock and roll, but as a complex individual who carefully preserved pieces of his personal journey. These treasures continue to captivate fans and historians alike, bridging the gap between legend and the man who made history. Legacy of human icon. Elvis Presley's legacy extends far beyond his public persona as the king of rock and roll. While much of his life has been documented through performances and official releases, archival materials housed at Graceland provide deeper insight into the artist and the man. Over the years, the Presley estate and various music historians have uncovered and preserved recordings and personal artifacts that reveal facets of Elvis's creative process and personal life that fans rarely get to see. Among these archival treasures are numerous reel-to-reel tapes containing rehearsal sessions, alternate takes, and informal recordings. Some date from the mid-1970s, a period when Elvis was still actively experimenting with his sound despite his personal challenges. These tapes often capture raw and unpolished versions of his songs, including gospel hymns and blues numbers that were integral to his musical roots. According to an audio archivist at the Presley estate, the rehearsal tapes and intimate recordings capture Elvis's vulnerability in a way his public performances never could. You hear the man struggling, exploring, and expressing himself honestly. Unlike the polished studio albums, these recordings offer a glimpse into Elvis's artistic exploration and his dedication to music, even in private moments. One of the most poignant examples is a series of intimate vocal recordings where Elvis performed solo, stripped of orchestration or backup singers. His interpretations on these tapes convey a deep emotional resonance, sometimes revealing vulnerability that contrasts with his confident stage presence. For instance, informal recordings of ballads such as Unchained Melody and gospel favorites like How Great Thou Art highlight the spiritual and emotional depth that characterized much of his work. These performances, often recorded during private rehearsals or late-night sessions, reflect Elvis's enduring connection to his music as a form of personal expression and solace. Beyond the audio archives, Graceland's collection includes a wealth of personal memorabilia that sheds light on the man behind the icon. Childhood keepsakes, such as a well-worn teddy bear from his early years in Tupelo, Mississippi, and a Bible gifted by his mother, provide tangible connections to Elvis's roots and family life. His high school yearbook, preserved with notes and doodles from classmates, offers a rare window into his youth before fame transformed his life. The estate has also safeguarded thousands of pieces of fan mail spanning Elvis's career. Letters from servicemen stationed overseas, grieving families, and devoted fans document the profound impact his music had on diverse audiences. Some letters express concern for Elvis's health and well-being during his later years, highlighting the human side of the superstar's struggles. Taken together, these recordings and artifacts form a rich mosaic that challenges simplified narratives of Elvis Presley. They reveal a complex individual marked by immense talent and deep vulnerability, a man who, away from the spotlight, grappled with his own doubts and emotions. Decades after his passing, these materials continue to bridge the gap between the legendary performer and the human being who lived behind Graceland's doors, enriching our understanding of one of music's most enduring icons. So now that the attic secrets are out, what do you think that mysterious discovery really means for Elvis's story? Drop your answer in the comments below. I'd love to hear your take. If you enjoyed diving into this piece of music history, give this video a thumbs up, hit subscribe for more untold stories, and check out one of the 2 videos on your screen right now for your next deep dive.